Hello and welcome to Creative Minds Unpacked. In this podcast, I'll be seeking out stories, strategies and support for creative people who are neurodivergent or those who dare to think boldly. For my guests, this is a safe space to pick apart the complexities of life, a place to share lived experience of feeling or thinking differently. Now is the time to break out of boxes and unpack our minds as we move forward into a brand new world. So we're here with Emmy Broomfield. Emmy is a voice and communication coach with a background in arts, participation and the charity and education sectors. She is endlessly curious about being human and deeply values compassion and joy. She works with anyone who wants to find their voice in some way. And Emmy, I know you because you've been my wonderful voice coach since last autumn with a pot of funding I got to help me to be a better communicator and help me dive a bit more into the podcast and some other areas of my work that are changing. So yeah, we've had a great journey and now here we are and you are here doing our podcast with us. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So first of all, we just, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Of course. So I'm Emmy. I really struggle. I think lots of neurodivergent people do with that idea of like, who are you? What do you do? But
Yeah.
If I had to write it down, I go under the guise of voice and communication coach. At this stage in my life, that hasn't always been the case. And what that means on a practical day-to-day level, I trained originally as a voice coach, working with actors, so working in drama schools, working on the voice as an instrument, but I've more broadly moved into communication coaching now. So that's helping people like you to go out and advocate in the world and have their ideas shared to change the world in some way. It's helping people in business to feel more confident at what they're able to do.
Yeah,
Do still work a bit with actors. And basically, if you've got a voice, I'm interested in it.
Amazing. We've all, well, yes, I think it's all about us expressing ourselves in new ways, isn't it, as
Completely.
well? And do you think that, obviously you've had your own journey, discovering how you think differently. Tell us a bit about that. How has your journey been for you to get to where you are now?
Of course. So I was only formally diagnosed, and I don't really like the word diagnosed.
Yes.
Because it makes it sound
We
like
said this recently,
an
didn't we?
illness. I think
Yeah.
it's more, it was determined formally that
That's
I have an ADHD brain.
I like that.
And that was only 2 years ago when I was 43. But I had had my suspicions probably for the best part of 30 years,
Yeah.
as I'm sure your experience and other listeners, people listening to this will have that experience. In the 90s, high achieving young women weren't deemed as having ADHD.
Sure.
So it came into my brain at that age that something didn't quite feel right, but I didn't know what it was, and there wasn't that pathway of support at that stage. Fast forward those 30 years, there's been definite moments through that time of me thinking, am I not? Lots of thinking, you're making it up, all of those classic things.
That self-doubt thing that we do.
Absolutely. And then when I went back to do my master's in 2020, I had a really clear conversation with a friend on the course who got diagnosed whilst we were studying.
Yeah.
We were talking through and I was describing something or other. And he said, are you sure you don't have ADHD? And classic comment. I said, no, I'm just a bit chaotic. Which now I look back and find that really funny.
Yeah.
And that really was that catalyst for, okay, maybe it's time to explore this. So it's been a long time coming, but I think looking back, the signs were always there.
Right. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, when you look back suddenly, when you've got to that point and then you look back and the things you can see so much clearer,
So
and in
much
fact,
clearer.
it's almost like you've got different glasses on, isn't it? You suddenly see the world differently and, start identifying things in other people as well, don't you?
100%.
It's so interesting. It's like you've put these special spectacles on. And do you think that, have you got any thoughts around how your journey and certainly maybe what's the word you use instead of diagnosed?
Determined.
Determined. Okay, so before you had your determined decision,
Yeah.
have you got any thoughts on how it held you back, or how you were hindered, or how you might have been helped, in your personal life or in your professional life, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So We split it out into helps and hindered. I think the things that I love about how my brain works is that I think very quickly. If I'm not burnt out, if I'm burnt out, not at all, but a lot of the time I can process information incredibly quickly and take lots of things in very quickly. I think I'm deeply motivated by connection. And that actually is why I'm now in the perfect career, because my job is all about connection.
Sure.
But also it's what makes me really good in places, because I can get in places, connect with people very quickly, make other people feel at ease, but also generally succeed in whatever I'm doing. So whatever I have done, I've generally done quite well at. So the different jobs I've had, I've been promoted. Now, the hindered side is that that's done with a lot of chaos at times, a lot of stress for myself and potentially the people around me, or a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
For years, burnout cycles, going round and round and round in circles of like, why can't I cope?
Yeah.
And then the inevitable after 2 or 3 years, getting bored and not finding the same thing as fulfilling. So I do feel now that I've understand myself and I've navigated that I almost don't see a hindrance for myself. I totally recognise deeply how hindering neurodivergence can be for people that haven't had the privilege that I've had and haven't got the support network that I've got. But definitely I can see big moments where it's hindered me in the past.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think suddenly that's what unravels a bit as you sort of deep dive more into who you are and, you know, strategies to help you or whatever, then those hindrances become less and less. But it's funny how we don't tend to talk about the skills so much, do we? Or how it helps you. And, you know, what you said then, I can really resonate. You said about being driven by connection. And I can remember often in my life saying, I just only really get on with people that I connect with. You know, I really need that deeper connection. And then suddenly you look back and you go, oh yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Or the ability to multitask in ways, you know. Yes. I think for me as a creative producer, and I've always got a million tabs open on my laptop and I jump between projects, you know, that's a skill in itself.
It really
is. It comes with its own side effects like burnout and like, you know. Yeah. You know, but yeah, it's amazing because, you know, spinning 25 million plates at once, isn't it? You know, and that's not something everyone can do.
No, it's not. But I do think that sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, why is your brain all over the place?
Yeah.
Actually, I love the fact that I have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. A friend once said to me, how would you just know everything? I think she meant it as, I don't know if she meant it as a compliment. She meant just know everything. And I was like, because I can't not know. If something sparks in my brain, I've got to find out. I have to know. And that comes a lot into my job, actually, of being like, what's going on for this person? I want to work it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I should imagine that really does underpin a lot of your work for sure. And yeah, I mean, I guess you feed that very much into your journey around communication, don't you? Of, you know, curiosity aspect as well as unpicking what other people are. And tell us a bit about how that you know, feeds into your work then.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that we're on a podcast about creativity, and I've got, you know, a full creative self outside of work, and for a while I was a performer and things like that. But actually, if I think about my work now, so much of it is based in creativity.
Yeah.
And actually, for a long time, I didn't necessarily think of myself as a creative type, partly because I had that ADHD thing of feeling you've got to get things right and perfectionism.
Okay.
So I shied away from being creative because I was like, what if I get creativity wrong? What if I try and write a song and it's bad? Or what if I suggest an idea and someone doesn't like it? Thankfully, I've now managed to let all of that go and actually just embrace that instinctive creativity that I think is a big part of my brain.
Can't be wrong, surely.
Well, it took me a while to get there. But
but it's such an interesting thing.
So the way it shows up in my work, creativity, but also the curiosity.
Yeah.
I'm, like I said, if there's a person in front of me, I don't want to just give them the generic, oh, here's some ideas, here's some coaching.
Yeah.
I want to really work out what's making this person tick. Why is this happening for them? How can I now communicate something to them that's really going to help them and make a change? And that does need creativity constantly because each person is different.
Sure.
So, you know, a way that I've coached you, an idea, a metaphor that I've given you isn't going to work for my next client.
Sure.
So all day long, I'm relying on my brain to be sparking away, coming up with these new ideas. And interestingly, I probably now feel the most I've ever felt a sense of thrive, if that makes any sense, because I think I'm now getting to practice the art of creativity every day.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time, it didn't feature in a big way in my life. and I actually now feel far more at peace being able to use it.
You feel like it's a really nurturing thing.
I really do.
Identifying
Yeah,
how
or
that
like
creativity comes in.
freeing, maybe.
Yeah,
it feels like I sort
sure.
of come back to somewhere that I was always meant to have been.
Sure, yeah. And when you said performance, was that what it was? It was singing, was it? And music?
Yeah, it was. I mean, like a lot of people, at one point I wanted to do musical theatre was the thing that I loved when I was younger, but I didn't have confidence. So whilst now that is, I would absolutely identify as a confident person, I didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
And
that can be quite a common thing, can't it?
Completely. And I had a whole different career. Through my 20s, I worked in charities. I worked for a big homelessness organisation, and I didn't do any performing at all. And then at 30, I realised something was missing.
Yeah.
And I came back to singing originally, which was probably my real love, through choirs to start with.
Yeah, okay.
But then started to realise, actually, I think I'm okay at this. Maybe not as bad as I worry that I might be. And then trying to condense 10 years into 1 minute, I then ended up hosting big events and singing on big stages and hosting sing-alongs and things like that. And actually engaging in that joy of music making became really important to me through that period of my life.
Yeah, it's interesting, really interesting. And it's funny, isn't it, that like I think a lot of people who think differently, or neurodivergent people, it seems to be there's quite a distinct link with creativity, because I think there's more fluidity or freedom that we get there. And it's funny because maybe a lot of us may suffer as well with shyness or feeling more insecure or anxiety. And those things are quite attached to creativity in a way I hadn't thought about till you mentioned that. But, if that is performing, or, that's a terrifying experience, or even if it's, when you're making art, you're bearing your soul, aren't you? And I hadn't really thought about it till you said it then, but there's such a link there, and then we're naturally drawn to that place, but actually it's quite an awkward place.
It is. It's this real tussle between I feel like I need to express myself. I'm also terrified of expressing myself because I feel like I'm different in some way. And often you don't understand yet, because most of us don't get our diagnoses, determinations until much further down the road.
Absolutely. And that's why it's nice that you now feel that that's come full circle and that you bring creativity in how you work, It's a really nice story and a nice way of coming back to that, isn't it, And do you find that within your work you have like personal strategies as well to sort of keep yourself in check? I should imagine when you're coaching other people with communication, I should imagine that comes in quite heavily for you.
It does. Part of why I love the work that I do is I haven't always been the communicator that I wished I could be. I'm trying to avoid words like a good communicator or the best communicator, because I think my philosophy on communication is that we all have a different communication style. And the difficulty is when we are communicating with someone with a different style.
Yes.
Especially if we all want to stay in our style. And then that's where misunderstanding comes, or we don't feel heard, and those things. So I, over the years, really started to understand my own style, which tends to be heart and passion led, very context driven, very excitable, all of those things. And actually coming to a place of loving those things, but also recognizing that depending on the person in front of me, that might not be my best strategy. So for me, it has been about finding a real toolkit of what's the range that I can have here. So that whoever's in front of me, I can reach them in the right way. And the things I have to be really careful of, the strategies I need to come to, definitely have had to work hard on my listening. Would say I'm still not there yet.
Okay.
Not because I don't want to listen, but because I get excited and inspired by things people say, and I want to kind of like show that excitement. I have to be really careful about balance. And this is something I've only realized in more recent years. So to be a really good coach, I need to be present with people. And to be present with people, I need time in my life to process, to ground, to calm, which are not things that come necessarily easily to me. So my big strategy is not working full time, which some people would say, you don't work full time, but it's because I can't work full time and be a good coach. But also lots of walking, lots of making sure that I'm eating well, I'm hydrating, I'm sleeping. So those tend to be my strategies. And then if there's one other thing, it's making sure I get enough joy in my life. If I don't get joy in my life, I turn into the most ungrounded communicator there possibly can
How
be.
funny. Isn't that lovely? Well, I mean, yeah, it's great because it pushes you to seek maybe
It does.
the joy, which,
Yeah.
we all maybe need to work on sometimes. And again, just talking about how, like, just general well-being, isn't it, around keeping our brains, when you have such a busy brain. And I know we've touched on this many times in our sessions about how full your brain can be, because you're excited by something, you're off on a tangent, that then next thing you know, you're over there and something else is happening, it's being in that brain, isn't it? And it's exhausting, but it's also, comes with its own pleasure, because it's constantly giving you, other stimulation, other things to think about, but it's quite draining, isn't it, as well?
Yes, it absolutely can be. It really can be. And I think if there's one switch I made on that, it was to start thinking, actually, I can't enjoy the joy if I then wish away the drain.
Yeah.
I've never communicated like that. I quite like how I said that.
Yeah.
As in, I was always in this like, oh, why can't I just always have the joy of it? And it's like, well, that's just not the reality of it.
Yeah.
So actually, I want to embrace both sides of being like, well, you get to have the joyful, really full power me, but you're also going to have the fact that I'm not going to be able to be available all the time, and I'm not going to reply to emails in text as quickly as I should, because if I do that, then I burn out, and then I'm not good for anything.
Yeah, and that's the real thing about protection, isn't it? And that I think anybody who's got a brain that thinks differently, who can be overwhelmed easily, by the world around us, it's important to have that quiet space.
Definitely.
I am terrible. Terrible is the wrong word. I need my quiet space. I think I've said to you previously, I can catch myself sometimes just staring at a wall, and there's probably nothing going on, but that's my natural sort of state of like, it's like a meditative state where I will retreat and go back into that. There's nothing going on, but we need that space,
Absolutely.
don't we? So much. It's there's so much to think about, I think, there. So I think that talking about thinking, I know also we've gone there a little bit, but that I'm quite a deep thinker, and I can be quite happy deep diving into certain thoughts and exploring new ideas and theories. And I wondered what thoughts you could bring to the table here about being a divergent thinker. So, just really thinking outside the box about life, and, what the world might look like if we all had the space to be ourselves and be accepted for who we are.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So there's a lot of questions in there. I'm so sorry.
No apology needed. That's wonderful. So yes, I absolutely would class myself as a divergent thinker, although I think at some stage, and we'll probably talk about language a bit later, I don't know if I love the term divergent sometimes.
Okay.
Because I'd like it to become that we've just different types. And there's all these different things.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not set on that either. I go back and forth on it. But yes, my brain does seem to think in a way that not the majority of brains think in.
Okay.
I am endlessly curious and have a question about everything, because I want to know the why. I want to know, how does that impact you? I want to know, but why does it do that and why not that? So I can find conforming quite difficult early on, like regular workplaces where this is just the way we do it.
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
But why? What are the other options here?
Yeah.
And my brain is often sparking off, someone will say one thing and I've suddenly got 8 different avenues I want to go down with it.
Yeah, I know.
I think the real opportunity of that is actually lots of innovation. If you go back through history, a lot of people that were innovative thinkers or really big minds that have really shifted us forward as humans, there is now starting to be some evidence that those people were probably neurodivergent thinkers.
Absolutely.
Because they are questioning in ways that other people might not, and they are seeing patterns, and my brain's bringing together all of these things really quickly, and I might notice something about my client, for example, and say, so I'm picking this up, and they'll go, oh my gosh, you're 100% right, but I've never thought of it that way. So I think there is this huge well of opportunity with listening to neurodivergent thinkers. I think the risk when we don't is that actually we're setting ourselves back as a society, as a community, because we're often saying, like, but you're always thinking of silly things. Or I think some of the times where I've said something, people's like, oh, your brain works in a weird way, doesn't it? Which is their way of shutting down that thing. Actually is shutting down opportunity, innovation, creative solutions. So I think if we were to recognize and appreciate different ways of thinking
Yeah.
and be more curious about that.
Yeah.
Which I know is very easy for me to say as an ADHD because it comes very easy being
I know.
curious.
Likewise.
But I do think the world would be better.
Yeah. And it's that thing again, and like you say, it's easy for us to say when you live with that sort of style of thinking, or so much going on, then it's easy to see it that way, isn't it? But it's maybe not always for everyone to see it in the same in the same light. Perhaps
that is the compassion I'm trying to have for people with the different brain types.
Yeah.
You're going, okay, it's so easy for me to be curious.
Yeah.
Actually, that is one of the gifts of my brain type. And I need to recognize that not all people necessarily have that skill.
No, absolutely. And I guess that's what, makes us all so different, absolutely. It's good to have diversity and the, the variation on how we do things. I was jumping back just and I thought back about when you're saying about listening as well. And I just thought about what we said earlier about how somebody recently told me that the feeling of being listened to properly is the same feeling as being loved. And that's quite a powerful statement, isn't it? And I think that sort of resonates with what we're saying here about, how we do things. And it might not always be easy for people to really hear what we're saying because we've got so much going on. But, that's probably why what you do and where you are in life and helping people to be a better communicator is so important especially for neurodivergent thinkers,
Yeah, I think so. Because again, I think that is why often people get shut down is because their communication style is different to somebody else's. And that other person, unfortunately, I think there is a perceived norm of what good communication is. And I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we are living within that perceived norm. And if we were to have this conversation in 50 years' time, hopefully things will have shifted.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, the options are I help people like myself and other neurodivergent thinkers to find strategies to be able to communicate this amazing, rich inner experience out into the world in a way that it lands.
Yeah.
Or all of these brilliant ideas, innovations, creative thoughts get lost because they're not received. Because people don't know quite how to translate them if they're not in that brain type.
Yeah, I guess translation is the key word there, isn't it? Really, very much so. I also wonder about the rise in AI and how that will affect communication in the future. I wonder what your thoughts are there.
Yes. Gosh, I love asking other people this because I work with people from all different sectors. So I'm always asking, tell me what are you doing with AI in your sector? Partly because I'm still not sure I still don't quite know which side of the AI argument I'm on. I think it's actually far more nuanced than needing to have a side.
Yeah.
But I'm very much, some days I'm like, oh, it's the best thing that ever happened. And then other days I'm like, oh, it's going to kill us all, get rid of it.
No, I'm definitely more in the latter.
It
has its moments, but yeah.
Definitely. So I think looking at the pros of it is that for neurodivergent thinkers who at the moment are not getting listened to because there's something within their style that isn't working for other people, for their audience.
Yeah.
I do think there is potentially a real gain there about being able to be like, here's all my thoughts. Can you order them in a way that makes sense to get the key messages really firmly across?
Yeah.
And that's obviously a thing you can do for written communication.
Yeah.
It is also a thing you could do ahead of a meeting or something where you want to get some ideas across. I think it can also be really good for getting started. As an ADHD, I find it so hard to get projects started. Thousands of ideas, but getting that first bit done.
Yeah.
So I think if you were writing a speech, being able to say, can you help me get started with a speech? I think that's potentially brilliant uses.
Yeah.
I think the flip side, the downside, first of all, is that loss of authentic voice, which everything starts to feel the same. You don't actually feel that connection.
Yeah, because you start to see commonalities between it. Don't you? You can pick it out as they are, yeah.
And then my big worry is that it's going to force us into a place where the norm becomes even more normalized of this is the exact way that you were meant to communicate.
Yeah.
And anything outside of that becomes even more divergent and frowned upon. But also, ultimately, we don't live our lives online. We live our lives out in real life, talking like you and I are right now.
Yeah.
You're asking me, of course, we did a little bit of prep beforehand, but if you're asking me a question and then my brain's only used to going to AI to work out how to answer that clearly in a compelling way, I'm never going to be able to communicate in real life.
Well, no, exactly. You
So-
sort of your brain starts to change, doesn't it?
It
I would imagine,
absolutely does.
I always think it's a bit like, sat nav or if you, I was such a map reader.
Me
I love
too.
maps. I still love
Yes.
maps. I really like looking at all the details
yeah.
and things. But I would always have an old tatty old map book in my car or in my van or whatever. And I was quite reluctant with sat nav for a long time. Now I use it all the time. But then when you start to use it, your sense of space and your natural ability to do that diminishes, doesn't it? Or
does.
when we were younger maybe, and you'd remember people's phone numbers because you didn't have them typed into your phone or whatever. All those things that we get used to, you diminish the thing you've got. So that surely will be the same of using AI to do things for us. That eventually we will start to diminish our communication. So it's you've got to push back with that, haven't you? Surely,
I think
be
so.
more real and.
Yeah, and I think also realizing that there are strategies you can use, and I'm not just saying that because it's what I do for a living.
No, but please do it.
there
It's what you do, and it's valuable.
There are things that you can employ
Yeah.
in the room
Yeah.
in real time to make sure that your listener is able to receive the message you want them to have.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's not authentic to use a tool to do something in a slightly different way. It's always in service of, I have got some thoughts that I want to not just share, but really land with the person in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'm not always going to be able to rely on something like AI.
No.
So then the option is, well, do I just go, well, that's the only option? Or do I go, well, actually, maybe there are some things that I can change. And I'm living proof of that. This is not how I would have always communicated.
Okay.
I wouldn't have given you eye contact. I would have been 100, but I'm
Yeah.
still a pretty quick speaker, but I would have been even quicker. I've been talking like this and just tangents.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I'd be jumping back and forth. There'd be all of this additional context and detail and richness, but actually all of that would have been diluting my message.
Yes.
And so learning to shift some of these things has really helped me.
Yeah.
And I think it can help others.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? And I love it. What I've loved in our sessions as well is how you can show me the examples of the different styles, because for me, I'm quite a visual person, and visual, I am seeing you do it as well.
Yeah.
But, and giving those examples, and like you just did then, the fast one is definitely how my brain is, a lot of the time, and how to slow it back and bring it back to a calmer space, so that you yourself can unpick as well, let alone deliver that effectively to somebody else. Yeah, I mean, I think that, the work you do is so valuable, in especially for neurodivergent people, because I should imagine that communication is a real area of, an area that we might struggle in, isn't it? And, do you find that with a lot of your clients?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, I do. So obviously we're talking about a whole collection of different types of brain types here, and I'm an ADHDer, so that's what I know best and understand best. But a huge percentage of the people that come to me are neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And for a while I was like, oh, that's interesting. Are they being attracted to me because I'm giving off neurodivergent vibes? Which obviously is a thing.
That's how it worked for me.
And I think there is an element of that.
Yeah.
But I think also there's this thing of, we have got these norms.
Yeah.
People have grown up with different brain types, so those norms don't make sense to them. And then they have gone through sometimes decades of their life feeling they're getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And eventually going, if they've finally got the time or the budget, or they're in a crisis situation, they've got to find a different way, they're then going, oh, okay, maybe I can go and speak to someone about this. So I think it makes a lot of sense to me, actually, that so many people that seek out communication coaching are neurodivergent. And I think it's often what I hear back from people is going, why wasn't I taught this?
Yeah, I know.
Why wasn't I taught how to communicate?
Yeah.
And we're definitely not in the state school system
isn't
here.
it? Yeah.
It's, it is like you learn from your parents, you know, all sorts of things go into it, your nervous system, your experiences in life. But nobody is actually sitting down and going, these are the things that generally help people to be engaged by you, to hear your message, to want to keep listening to you, to trust you, all of these things.
Sure.
We're not giving people the rule book.
No.
And that's what I get to do. And especially for neurodivergent thinkers who are they're literally like, well, I don't even know where the rule book is, let alone to read it, because it's like, well, that doesn't look like the rule book for me. I can be like, okay, so here's the rules that society has decided are the rules. Here's what you're currently doing. What do you want to not get rid of? Because we don't want you to feel that you've had to change, mask those things.
Yeah, because you've got to still be authentic.
You've got to be yourself.
Yeah.
But how can we learn a few things that when you need to, you can pick them up and put them on so that you can go and navigate those spaces, and those spaces now make sense to you?
Yeah.
Because often they haven't, because nobody's talked it through.
No, sure.
Love getting to do that.
Yeah,
You're not the problem. The system's the problem.
Well, absolutely. Yes. Like completely. And I think that's such a resonant statement, isn't it? For everything around neurodivergence, is that, you struggle with this, for the majority of your life of, I'm doing it wrong, or I can't do it, or I don't fit, or whatever it is. But actually it's because we're being forced into a society that doesn't fit for us, that doesn't work for us. And actually, thank goodness we're in a place now where that's widening. We're able to ask the right questions. We're able to explain to people, I was saying to you recently about process, is it okay to say in a meeting, I just need a few minutes to process that question? Or, and I think that's another thing, that's certainly something I found really beneficial from my sessions with you, is taking the time back to think, and not just blurting it all out in one go, as my brain would, but taking a moment to think, and actually being allowed to take a moment.
Definitely.
We talked about that, didn't we, before, about like giving yourself the green light to say it's okay to take a pause.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to miss something if I actually slow down and wait. I think there's a tendency to think that someone's going to jump in, or you're not going to get to say what you want to say.
Absolutely.
But actually bringing it right back, it gives you the clarity and the calm. And also, I think people maybe respect that and wait as well. There's a sort of dual thing there, isn't there?
I think there is. I'm really fascinated by the idea of gravitas and what that even means. And again, I still don't think I really know, and I'm sure it will shift over generations. But there is something definitely within UK culture that people that are taken seriously tend to actually really take up their space.
Yeah.
Really use the pause and say a little bit less, rather than giving everything.
Yeah.
Now, for those of us that like to rush in, that's really annoying.
Yeah, because there's so much to say.
There's so much to say, and I've got brilliance to offer to the world, and why should we only be listening to this one time?
Yeah.
So it's a constant battle, to be honest, between this authenticity and going, well, okay, I do still want to make sure someone receives this.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I'll ever know what the right answer to that is.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends on what context it is, isn't it? So, if you've got something really important you want to deliver, if that's a meeting or a talk, or, a being public speaker, or, whatever it is, that, if you're in general chit chat, we can probably let go a bit and be more fast.
100%. Like, I think sometimes people that are neurodivergent turn up to my coaching office expecting me to go, okay, what you're doing isn't right. Here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And actually the first thing that I'll always, after I asked some questions and worked out who someone is this is great. If you're with someone of a similar brain type, go at it.
Sure.
My ADHD friends, of which there are many, we can have the most amazing 5-hour conversations. There's nobody is pausing for breath. We are talking over each other. We are jumping from topic to topic. We're going around in circles. We're going off on threads. And at the end of that 5 hours, we both feel energized.
Yeah.
We feel amazing. We're just like, oh, this is incredible.
Yeah.
However, if I'm with a friend with a different brain type, I realize that isn't going to it might make me thrive, but it's not going to make them thrive. So then we are in this, how do I shift somewhere?
Yeah.
Because there's now a different person in front of me. And I think we cycle back to that idea of the different types of communication we need to do. This works really well for conversation with another neurodivergent person. If I am having a creative conversation there is no agenda of like, we've got to get this thing done. It's more like, let's generate ideas. Again, this style really useful.
Brainstorming.
Exactly. Like let's choose something over. Let's see where we go. And actually is how the ancient Greeks and stuff had their conversations.
Right.
They would go into a room for 8 hours going, let's all make something together, rather than one person being like, here's my idea and you've all got to listen. Yeah. Which I think businesses could do with a lot more of. Side point. But if you are somewhere where you need to have impact and you've got ideas that you need to land, there is a space there for, I need to order my thoughts. I need to be really clear on what it is that I want to share right now. Yeah. And I need to do it in a way that makes it easily digestible for the person in front of me. Yeah. Yeah, so it's, I guess, planning, thinking about what your end goal is, what you want people to go away with, isn't it, as well, probably, so are they hearing that? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I suppose language is another factor here as well, isn't it? And, we all know that language,
the use of certain negative words around neurodivergence specifically, or even I think in our lives, negative words have such a huge impact. And, certainly the use of, you're a poor timekeeper, I was told recently, where I will argue I'm a different timekeeper.
Yeah.
I do apologize to anyone that I'm ever late for. I really do. I genuinely try. But, deficit, disorder, you're lesser at it, you're unable, whatever it is, how would you think about those words, and how could we shift the language a bit more so that we are looking at skills and, our strengths and what makes us amazing and unique and, colourful? Like how do we begin to shift that sort of language? Because it comes from the top, doesn't it? ADHD in itself, those 4 things. I mean, when is that going to get changed?
I mean, I imagine there's a committee somewhere.
Well, there better be. Otherwise, we need to start one.
But in terms of that sparking of thoughts, I have spent so long thinking, but who does decide that? What process does it have to go through? Yes, language. I'm fascinated by language. And I think one of the things about language is it isn't fixed. It is ever changing. But also, as life changes, we don't always have the language yet to describe things. So whilst I do feel a sense of, this language, I also really recognise it's kind of the best we've got for now as we're going.
Sure.
I think I only very recently have come to this thing of being like, I don't like the word diagnosis because it makes it sound like
you've started me thinking about
sickness or illness.
You're right.
And it's not at all to me. Because lots of my ADHD is brilliant. So that's an interesting word.
Yeah.
One of the things that I often will talk to clients about is when they'll say things like, I'm overthinker. I over-explain. And I'm trying to get people to think I'm an abundant thinker, because overthinker just instantly makes it sound like you're doing too much. And it's something that you can switch off.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're an abundant thinker, a rich thinker.
Yeah.
The over-explaining, again, it's that to you, you're not. To you, it makes sense. The context from my brain.
Details.
Sure. I love it.
Yeah.
And I'd actually, please give me all of your detail.
Yeah.
But again, in that situation, it's like, is that what the brain of the person in front of you needs?
Yeah.
So I think these terms that society's using, but also we're using as a community, I do think needs to be talked about and have these discussions whilst we come to where the right word choices are. I also deeply respect that for some people, diagnosis might be the right word. Because for them, it might actually be not a great thing.
No, it's true.
Many years ago, I worked for a homelessness charity for the best part of, I worked in homelessness for the best part of 10 years.
Yeah, okay.
There is a huge percentage of people who are in prison, who are street homeless, who are in supported housing, who are neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Because for them, they haven't maybe had the privilege, the support, there's other things going on.
Yeah.
And for them, they might feel diagnosis is the right word.
Yeah.
Or, someone that is quite similar to me might feel diagnosis is the right word. And again, I think that's a tricky thing because who owns it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got to be led by you at the end of the day, hasn't it? And, how you define yourself. And I recently heard that, as we know, quite a lot of later women are getting diagnosed later, mainly because we didn't really have the data on how women responded around autism, for example, or ADHD as well, but also because the menopause can trigger that thing, because we tend to drop our masking. So and I've been hearing that a lot of women have perhaps been, and I'm generalizing here, everybody struggles, but, that women have struggled because suddenly they've felt such grief that they've been left with a diagnosis late in life. And then they suddenly look back and feel this immense grief. And when I heard that, I felt really sad because I don't know how many other people feel like me, but I was so excited and I was celebrating, so much. It was literally the best thing for me. It's changed my life completely. But, I also understand that that's how I feel. And so I feel quite, I feel like we need to find these strategies and structures so that everybody can also begin to, obviously you've got to go through your grief and you've got to go through those emotions because that's who we are, and there's obviously sadness, if I look back in my life. But I think it's really important that we also identify what makes us who we are and what are our strengths and celebrate those good things about us. And if it is thinking too much and coming up with a million things, then you might have an amazing idea because of that might not happen. Or there are so many things that give us amazing traits, isn't there?
There is. And I think with all of this language around deficit and diagnosis and disorder and, like all of that language is suggesting a lesser.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you.
So I would hope eventually through these conversations, although obviously we're at a very interesting time society-wise and world-wise where people don't seem to want to have those conversations. But with my optimistic, joyful, compassionate ADHD hat on, I really hope that in 10, 15, 20 years' time, we have moved to a place where the broader society understands and celebrates the plus sides of neurodivergent thinking.
100%. And just acknowledge that we are all different, and that if our brain works differently, that's not a bad thing.
No, I find it fascinating. I'm like, I want to know how your brain works rather than like, well, you seem a bit different to me. That's annoying.
Well, yeah.
I'm just like, whoa, tell me more.
People can be afraid of people being different though, can't they? I think that's something society shows very much. But we should be celebrating differences and celebrating, because imagine if we did all look exactly the same and, think all exactly the same. Gosh. I can't even imagine. It's like some awful horror film.
Smash my head on the desk with like the boredom of it.
I know. Oh, I mean, I think we're probably coming to the end quite soon, but I was wondering, Emmy, if you had some quick tips. I know it's a really, it's not an easy thing to answer necessarily, but if you had some quick tips to really help neurodivergent people or people who think differently to shine in a communication way or to be clearer, what could they be?
Absolutely. So I think there's some concepts that sit underneath it in terms of the mindset around communicating. I think there's a real sweet spot of enough context to make something deep enough to land and be memorable, and so much context that people dilute messages and people find it hard to hear and pick out the ideas within there. And I think without going too much down the lines of the different styles and types of neurodivergent, there is definitely, I work with some clients with different diagnoses to me that need help with expanding so it doesn't feel too concise.
Yeah.
But then definitely for most of the ADHDers, it is here's every thought in my head.
Yeah.
A side note on that, a very kind friend said to me, it felt hard at the time, but a very kind friend said to me, you don't have to share every thought in your head. And it actually was a really radical thought for me. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I should say, I was into my 40s before this happened in recent years. But actually it really did help me because I was like, for people to understand and appreciate and see me, they don't need everything that's in my head.
Yes.
And I think I'd had this big thing before of, well, I deeply need you to understand me. So here's everything.
No, I can really relate to that.
You can work it out for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think there's that mindset shift of what verbal communication is for. It is for connection. It is for you to see the other person, the person see you, but it is also for ideas to be able to land.
Yeah.
So we need some information, but not too much information.
Yeah. Okay.
I think another thing that's really helped me, and this is probably, again, more for ADHDers, is really thinking about the fact that your listener needs time to process. So really being at home with the fact that you have lived with these thoughts in your head for a long time, but they're new thoughts for the person in front of you.
Yeah.
So you've got to give space and time for them to be able to pick that up.
And again, it's that pause, isn't it?
It's the pause.
Bringing the pauses in.
Which feels really alien when you start doing it. But like with anything, you build the habit.
It becomes the normal, doesn't it?
And it is linked to that first thing of actually, I want this person to take this information away.
Yeah.
And if there's no processing time, they might really enjoy listening to you in a moment. Often ADHDers, we're so passionate and we're energetic and people are like, oh, you're brilliant, fun to listen to.
Yeah.
But tomorrow they won't remember anything I said.
Sure.
And sometimes that's fine. But if I really want it to land, I've got to give them time to listen.
Yeah.
I've got to give them time to process. And I don't want to dilute my message too much.
Yeah.
And what I just demonstrated there is there's probably about 30 more things I want to share right now. 30 more ideas. But actually, if I share everything, the risk is people go away with nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So clear and concise, I guess, isn't it, is the message, trying to think to take some of the clutter away. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if people wanted to get in touch with you to ask you any questions, is there a place that we can send traffic to you in some way?
So a couple of different ways people can engage with me. obviously on Instagram, terrible at ever posting on there. That is Emmy B Voice Coach. You can find me there.
Emmy B Voice Coach.
Emmy B Voice Coach.
Yep.
There is also a website that has been in development for some time. So depending on when viewers are listening or watching this podcast, maybe the website will fully exist, or maybe it will still be the holding page. And that's emmybroomfieldvoice.com.
Okay, we'll share these links as well on
Absolutely.
On our sites.
And then if people are looking for some way to start engaging with the idea of becoming more aware of their communication habits, potentially shifting, I've got some free courses that I did in partnership with Central School of Speech and Drama, which is where I trained at the University of London, and they're hosted on Cousera. The first one is Finding Your Professional Voice, Confidence and Impact. It's free to do. It's not neurodivergent specific.
But still helps in the same ways, doesn't it? Absolutely.
It's a good starting point.
Oh, great. So maybe if you give us those links, we can share them on our platforms and then people can access it like that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming all the way up from London today to be with us, Emmy. It's been brilliant to talk through some of this stuff with you. And thank you again.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this today. If you feel you're a bold thinker, have unique stories or helpful tips and strategies to help others, please get in touch with the Creative Minds Unpacked team. We would love to hear from you.